In today's video, we're going to have a look at how to create a shipment dispatch template. Within the shipment dispatch template, we'll define the details where we record the route and the route point defaults. We'll look at adding some service charges, either costs or services, to this template. We'll have a look at the tab configuration, which we can override from the general settings in security, and then in security we'll have a look at how you can force the users to use the specific shipment template. So when we go to MineMarket, the first thing we have to do is we go down to the transport section, under vessels, open that up, and then here we can see our shipment templates. This is a shipment template group, and just for the sake of the demo, I'm going to create a new shipment template group, and I'll just call it demo. And then inside that group, I'm going to create a new shipment template. So this is just by right-clicking, and I'll create the shipment template. Right, so the first thing, as you can see, is the blue is highlighted there. It just means that you can rename it, and I'll just give it a name. So the naming convention that I'll use is from the load port to the discharge port. So I'll just call it port to customer. And because we can have different types of templates, we can have shipping templates, train templates, barge or truck templates. I'll just add the word shipping as well. That's a naming convention. The default unit of measure can be specified. It defaults to tons, and if you want to change it, you can change it here. We haven't got a vessel assigned because we don't know which is the vessel that's going to be assigned to the shipment. We can define transport operators for this template if there are ones that are going to be used every single time. And then we have to go down to the details. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the details. So the first thing is we pick the route, and then inside the route we've got some route point details that we'll configure. So the first thing is you have to have a route defined already before you can select it here. So this is some extra configuration that you would do beforehand. So I'm going to select from the port to the customer. Okay, and inside this we have, when we define the route, we would say typically that this is the load only port and this is just unloading only, how long it takes to load here, what the time is to travel from the one point to the other point, the time to unload, etc. So that's all configured in the route itself. So then we can say, okay, are we allowed to change any routes and allow the template modification? Now, the purpose of this video is not really to discuss all these detailed configuration. If you're unsure, you can always just go to help, and it's a context sensitive screen, so it comes up with, straight away it comes up with the screen that we're on. So we're on the shipment template, comes up with the shipment template, online help, and then here you can see there's a heck of a lot of detail here. So allow the route change, if it's checked, then the shipment template cannot, etc., and auto unload, etc. There's a heck of a lot of information here, additional information in the online help that I'm not going to cover in the video. So this is found by just going to either pressing F1 or just going here and then say content F1. Go to the help option at the top. Right. So let's just keep this a simple template. So at this port, the loading point, we can define the default loading process flow and the default loading stockpile. Okay, so once we select the default loading process flow, so I'm going to just say the default is yard to shipment, and of course you can name your ships based on the loading process flows, etc., and you can have multiple templates based on where you're loading it from, etc. So within that yard to shipment template, these are the process flow, these are the for that yard to shipment process flow, these are the stockpiles that are available. Now, if you have specific products on certain stockpiles, and these stockpiles are fixed, and let's say this is a template for a certain customer and a certain product, then you can define these in general. If it's not that very specific, then just don't select it, but that's possible. Okay, the next thing is we can do is, because we're now on the loading point, these fields, the unloading process flows, are grayed out. We can't select them. Okay. Then we go to the default transport event template. So let's just go and have a look at the transport events. The transport events are just snapshots in time, either a single snapshot where you say, at what time was the ship berthed, or how long did the loading take. That would be a duration, so it would have a start and an end point. Or we could just have a event which is just literally where you're adding comments to text. And these are typically used for shipping documents like statements of facts, or for calculating demurrage and dispatch, etc. Okay, so let's go and have a look at transport event template. So if we go to the transport events, and these are all pre-configured. So here if we go and look at the shipment transport events, I'll just open this up, and here we'll see a full list of all our events. So these are all events that have been defined. You'll see on the right hand side some of these events have an auto update. Okay? These events are events that already appear on the route plan. So if you want to keep it simple for the users and you want to have all the events on a single page, so they just fill in all the data on one page and they don't have to hop between different tabs, then you can maybe select the auto update, so that if they updated in the route plan, it would automatically update in the events tab, or you could just have it update in the events tab and then automatically the corresponding one would update in the route plan. Okay, so so that's for the auto update. The next thing is we can see this column here has a duration. So the initial draft survey, as soon as we select has a duration, that means it'll have a start date and an end date. And the same with the final draft survey, it'll have a start and an end. Okay, this is all configurable based on your situation. So this is the list of all our default shipping events. Now we go and create a template. So in this template called ship loading, if I click on that, all these events are listed, but we select that only these pilot on board, deballasting complete, etc. These are the ones that are going to appear in that list, because we've already got these, so we don't want to add them as well. Okay, so we just add those few there. Right. So if you go back to I'll just save that, and I'll go back to my details tab on my shipment template. So here we can see there's the default transport event, and there we can see the ship loading that we've just seen. Okay, so every ship will have this ship loading added to it. Okay, so let's save that. The same applies if you go to the unloading point. You'll have exactly the same options, and we're not going to cover that again now. The next tab we can look at is the service charges. So you might have service charges, and you might have certain costs associated to loading points or unloading points. Right, because we're still on the loading point, we go to the loading tab, and these costs, I can define them using cost templates, and then I can just use those cost templates here to select them here. So the cost templates we define under the organizations. There I've got some cost templates, and I've got some service cost templates, and I've got one here that's based on time. So it's the loading belt hire is a time, and it's $250 per day. And then the port loading is based on the loaded wet mass, and it's $1.11 per ton. Right. So these cost templates are defined under the Organization tab. So I can go and right click and I can say I want to add a service cost, and I can go down to my service, and there you see the load belt hire and the port loading that I've just selected. So maybe in this case you'd only use the loading belt, right? You only have to pay for that, and we save that. Okay. Then we have another sub tab here under the service charges, also called service charges, and this is where we would typically go and find a contract. So this is where we have a service charge contract. We right click and we say add service charges. It will bring up the search dialog where we say between a start and an end date, show me all the valid service charges. Okay, so I'm going to select for service, I want to add service charges, and you can see there's quite a lot of different criteria: activity, organization, end date, locations, origins, etc. Okay, so I'm just going to go and say I'm going to use it for a specific organization. I know that's going to do all my work for me, and I'm going to select the authority. So at this point, just be careful that you don't click OK, because that's OK for this form. Okay, so just use it, just click off it, and then just click search, and then within all these criteria that we've listed above here, this is the only charge that's been returned that satisfies all those criteria. So if we look at the loading activity charges for the specific port, we can see we've got like there's a fixed charge and then there's a wet mass charge. Now we can say, okay, we want to add this to the template, right? So there we've added that to the template, and we can save that. So the next thing is, if we can look at the tab configuration. Previously, in a different video, we looked at, in the supply chain, we looked at security, where you could define the tabs that you want to hide away or rearrange the tabs, the order in which they appear. So if we open up the administration, on the end of the administration user securities, we had this field called form tab configuration. Now what this displayed all the different places where you can define the tabs, either which ones are hidden or the sequence in which they are displayed by moving them up or down. So the ones at the top would be on the left and the ones at the bottom would be on the right. And then if it's hidden, if this is selected, then it wouldn't display in the interface. But what we see here, we've got the barge, the dispatch order, the shipment, and then we have the trains and trucks as well. If we go to the template, if we go back to the template and we say, okay, I want to use all the defaults, but maybe I want to add, I don't want to see a certain tab, maybe the hatch loading tab or whatever. I can select that and then say override. Okay, override the user group settings and then have it specific for that template only. Right. So just important to note, on the tab configuration, you can have a generic setting across the whole of MineMarket for the whole operation, and then you can even customize the generic settings further down to a specific template. Right, let me save that. We can also have a look at allowable loading or unloading stockpiles. That's if you have a specific, you're only allowed to load from stockpile 1 or stockpile 2, etc., and you can define all those details there. So now that we've created our shipment template, important setting I just want to show you is if we go back to our user group administration and we go back to our user group security rights. Okay, because we've defined a template, we want the users to use the template because it will produce consistent data, and all the shipments will look exactly the same. They'll have all the same default costs, etc. on the shipment, and we won't have to go back and add them later on. So under the user group security rights, if we scroll down on the right hand side and we get down to dispatches, there are two options here: allow new shipment dispatch from Explorer, or allow new shipment dispatch from template. So I've assigned the template but not the Explorer. Now what that does is, if you go into your Shipment Explorer, the only way you can create a shipment is by using the template. You cannot create a shipment that is not using a template. And I think this is quite a good setting to switch off, that you force the users to use the template so that you have consistent data. So let's go open up a Shipment Explorer. If you can't remember which one is the Shipment Explorer, if you hover above any of the icons, a little tooltip comes up, says what it is, and there we see the Shipment Explorer. Okay, let's open that up. In this section here, shipments will be returned based on any of the criteria if I want to search for them. But because we haven't created the shipment yet, nothing will, only existing shipments will display. So we want to go and create a new one. Now the first thing you see is we only get the option new from template. If we had selected new from Explorer, we would have just the option there called new, create a new shipment, right? And then, yeah, we can create multiple dispatches. But today we're just going to be talking about how to use that template we just created to create a shipment. So then I'll go and say new, go down to my demo group, and I'll say I want to use that port to customer shipment. So let's save that. Now that we've created the shipment, so you can see. So the first thing is you'll be able to change the name of the shipment identifier. We don't have a specific vessel selected, and so it'll be TBN. But you can see our route has been assigned automatically. Okay, and then if we go and look at the marketing, you can see under service charges, there we've got our costs. That one cost, the loading belt hire we assigned, and then we've got our service charges, and then we can just give it a name. We can give it a specific name if you want to give it a different name. Right. So that's how easy it is to create a shipment template in MineMarket, and I always recommend creating new shipments using the shipment template and not allowing it just to create new shipments without templates. So if there's a lot of extra information in the online help on the templates, and a lot of detail about specific fields if you're unsure what the field does. But I think that's a very simple way to produce consistent data. So if you have any extra questions, please send them through to support.minemarket@dataminesoftware.com. Thank you.